Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Hash, your daily beat on crypto and culture. My name is Naomi Brockwell, and I'm delighted to be joined by our other wonderful co-hosts. We have Ben Powers, Jen Sanasie, Will Foxley, and Zack Seward. Welcome to the show, guys, and we're going to kick off the day by talking about Goldman Sachs. So, Zack, what is their story today?
Okay, Goldman Sachs announced today that they are going to make it real easy for private wealth management clients to get a hold of Bitcoin and other digital assets. So this is a major step for Goldman. They've been accelerating their involvement in the space in recent months. And this is, again, responding to client demand to say, okay, hey, we're going to help you get a hold of Bitcoin and other assets. So that's the takeaway here. I just want to point out that the person who's in charge with this task is named Mary Rich. That is a really great last name for someone to run this project. So I'm just going to start it off there. This is a mega bank doing Bitcoin stuff. Naomi, what do you got?
So I think it's interesting that Goldman Sachs, they went on this long hiatus. They used to have a trading desk, then they stopped it for many, many years and weren't getting into it. And now they're back in, and it just corresponds with the bull and bear markets. So I'm wondering, like, when the price crashes, are they just going to stop it again? And they're just going to say, oh, no, we're not going to deal with this. And then when the price goes back up, they'll be like, yeah, we're going to relaunch. We're offering these things. Like, it's kind of interesting to me. I can't blame them. You know, this is a volatile asset, and it's still very new in terms of, compared to other assets out there. So they're being cautious and all that. I hope that it sticks and that it's not just another fad from them, but we'll see how it goes. And it's interesting, they're offering a bunch of things. They said that there are going to be other digital assets as well. So I'm interested to see what the actual products are. Will, what's your take on all this?
And so this reminds me of a piece that my colleague Brady Dale just wrote the other week for The Node, one of CoinDesk's newsletters. And I think he entitled it, like, when the suits are here, no one's having fun, or something along like that. And I kind of agree with it. Like, it's kind of sad in a sense. I think crypto's kind of exiting, like, its glory days of just being, like, trolly on Twitter and Reddit and people getting, like, really rich and then really poor within seconds. It's just like those Wild West days are kind of coming to a close, perhaps, as we see, like, institutions moving in, and things will get boring as more suits come in. Obviously, it's better for adoption.
We can't have the Wild West forever.
Yes, we can.
Yes, it lives on in my heart. Come on, it's way better.
That's why Will has a cowboy hat. It's aspirational.
I do have a cowboy hat. No, my other colleague, Anna, I always forget how to pronounce her last name. And Zack, help me out here.
It's Bidakova. I got you.
I always say it incorrectly. Thank you. She'll be unhappy with me. But she had a great tweet this morning that was like, it's not, Bitcoin isn't about the price, it's about the freedom. And it's taken off, got out some legs of its own. I think that's a good reminder here is like, you need to have Goldman Sachs move in so that the nominal person can get exposure to Bitcoin. And so I think that's a good thing in the long run, even if it's not as much fun.
Yeah, but I think
it was interesting.
Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
No, I kind of want to piggyback on that just because I thought what was interesting here is that they specifically said, we're going to be kind of targeting this educational resources to wealthy clients to get them into it. And to me, it was a little bit disappointing in some ways that, you kind of spoon feed already incredibly wealthy people like access to Bitcoin and the materials and the educational stuff, while the people who, might stand most to benefit it from outside of traditional financial system are kind of left in the like, do your own research, like what on-ramp should I use? How safe and secure should I be among all these sorts of things. So, I think it's certainly notable, but it seems to me to just be sort of consolidating resources amongst the people that already might have the greatest access and wherewithal to, have access to crypto.
Yeah, well, I think that applies to... Go ahead, Zack.
No, you do it. You got it.
I was just going to say, I think that applies to lots of different crypto products as well, not just Bitcoin. Like you have these awful accredited investor rules. And if you look at how they began, like 100 years ago, it was because, people didn't have access to the internet. They didn't all have a mobile phone to look up things. So it was this idea of protecting people who didn't have access to all the same inside information, right? And so only these securities could be traded by these wealthy people. But that's totally not the case today. And it's just a really unfair system all around, that everyone doesn't have access to all these same investment vehicles. But Zack, what were you going to say?
I think it's just another example of, the convenience of providing wealth management customers with this thing that they keep hearing about and this number that keeps going up. And I'm sure, they keep hitting up these big giant banks and saying, hey, why can't I get this? Help me out. Trusted intermediary. And so, I think we had it with BNY Mellon, which was a big one. We're seeing other giant financial institutions also, seemingly being subject to this client demand and saying, okay, hey, yeah, we're going to spin up some products and make sure that you can come to us for all your financial needs, including in the digital asset realm. So this to me is another data point in that story. I think people can sort of misinterpret this as Goldman Sachs consulting its crystal ball and tapping its sage wisdom about what Bitcoin is and what it will be, when I would venture that it's probably people down chain from them saying, hey, why can't I just go with you, my trusted financial institution, to get access to this big number that keeps going up and up? So, Naomi, to your point, the 3-year hiatus, right? The following the trend of the Bitcoin price, you see that with mainstream institutions in finance, in media, in sports, in entertainment, and then we have these niche players like CoinDesk and all these other crypto companies who are here through thick and thin. So shout out to those companies. Go Squad. Jen, what do you got?
Well, I was just going to say, we talk about Bitcoin and crypto for financial freedom, and we have all of these wealthy investors and institutional investors that are participating in Bitcoin. And I think the two kind of go hand in hand. I think the more wealthy investors and institutional investors that participate in Bitcoin makes it less likely that, crypto is going to get banned and that we're going to have, crypto just kind of wiped off the face of the planet. And then essentially it works for the people who need it the most. So I think the two kind of go hand in hand. And while it is sad that the wealthy are benefiting from it the most, that it will eventually go back to its original use case. Naomi?
Yeah.
Sorry, Ben, you go.
I was just going to say, quick counterpoint, the people that are most invested in maintaining the status quo, co-opting Bitcoin, isn't necessarily the kind of use case we all wanted from this.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. Jesse Powell had a great tweet the other day where he said, am I relieved that we're now hitting mainstream adoption? And he said, no, because that means that now we will no longer be able to be ignored. And now that we have lots of institutional players in, yeah, sure, more people are coming in. We think it's making the system more robust, but I also think that it's giving the system more scrutiny, and we might have less freedom as a result. But let's wrap it up there and head over to our next topic. I think we're talking about Tesla.
Yep. So speaking about, not necessarily institutional investors, let's say, but big adopters of Bitcoin, Tesla reached out to BC Pay Server, a open source payment processor, and notified them of a bug in their GitHub code base. So this is interesting. It's a little bit unclear exactly what the impact of this bug was. BTC Pay Server pushed a upgrade soon after this, kind of addressing the issue. But what's more interesting is that Tesla and its security kind of apparatus was looking at open source code, just kind of seemingly of their own accord. And so there are a lot of different kind of questions that come out of this. But Will, what was your initial reaction upon reading this story?
It's interesting that they're digging into the code book of BTC Pay Server, which is a pretty small company still. They're definitely still a startup. And for those who don't know, they're kind of an alternative to BitPay, which was the de facto way of paying for going to merchants and using crypto. And then back in 2017, there's this whole kerfluffle over using BitPay or don't use BitPay. They don't support this Bitcoin fork. They support this one. And everyone got really political about it. And BTC Server kind of popped out of that, and they're doing very well. I know a lot of merchants are now accepting them, and there's a huge groundswell movement of people trying to get restaurants and just regular shops to use this tool for paying for crypto really easily in-house. And so it's cool to see that Tesla, a Fortune 500 company, is digging into the code book of a Bitcoin startup and giving them little tips on things here and there. I don't think there's probably anything very wrong with BTC Pay Server. It's probably just a small thing here and there. And Tesla obviously has a lot of money, and they're probably going to be looking through the tools that they're using, whether it's proprietary or not. So I think overall, it's that's a huge win for the industry to see these very small things that Tesla is doing, holding Bitcoin, running a node, checking out open source software, making sure it's secure.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. That seems to, like, we're talking about mainstream adoption and maybe there are dangers there. But one of the great things about mainstream adoption is you do have more eyes on the projects. We had bugs in Bitcoin that have lasted for years and years and years because although we call things open source, we immediately think that it makes them safer. The fact is, unless someone's actually scrutinizing the code, it doesn't really make a difference at all. And if you look at how complex some of these code bases are, it's really rare to find people actually going through with a fine-tooth comb. But now we have Tesla entering the space. They have a lot of resources and they're accepting Bitcoin. I wonder if they're using BTC Pay as a means of allowing customers to purchase Teslas. So maybe that's why they're combing through the code base. Zach?
There seems to be these little inklings of like hiccups in the Bitcoin payment for Tesla things. I'm seeing tweets, I'm seeing a couple stories. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if this is somehow related, right? Tesla has sort of been, kicking the tires on accepting Bitcoin for cars. And if there has been some problems, I could see why they would want to step in and get this resolved in short order. So that may require a bit more reporting, but I am seeing some inklings of some issues. So maybe this is related. I have no idea, but it's cool that they're getting in the nitty-gritty of the code base and seeing if they can sort out those issues as this goes to a bigger audience.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like the Human Rights Foundation has been doing a lot of work with Bitcoin, and they actually helped, set up BTC Pay server as a payment processor in Nigeria, for example, for groups that were working with protesters there when they were cut off from mainstream bank accounts. And so it's interesting that you're seeing it used in use cases like that, and in other countries like Venezuela, and then Tesla's looking into this as well. What I just thought was really interesting here is that BTC Pay server did not confirm that Tesla was, and they said they were in fact unaware if Tesla was using their code in their own kind of payments process. But if Tesla's scrutinizing this code in this minute of detail, it does point to maybe they're using at least some parts of it or a clone of it or something like that. So that'll be some really interesting follow-on reporting, I think, kind of coming out of this, because in my mind, I don't see a real reason why security researchers at Tesla would be scrutinizing a, relatively new, and as you mentioned, small startups kind of code base for this, unless there was some other kind of motivation pushing them forward.
Yeah. I mean, I would be very keen to find out the results of that. I think all the evidence does kind of suggest to that, because Tesla, although they have a lot of resources, it is going to be finite and they are going to have to choose where they direct those resources. So if they're looking at BTC Pay, then, chances are. But Zach, what have we got after the break?
After the break, we have the case of the mysterious missing NFTs. Are expensive NFTs vanishing into thin air, or is someone not doing their tech right? We'll talk about that after the break. Stick with us on
Ghosts or Tech.
Who knows? Why not both?
Hello, everyone. You are watching The Hash. If you've just joined us, this segment was named before the break. It's called Ghosts or Tech. So Vice reported that people are losing their NFTs. Now, the focus of the story is on a property manager who purchased an Elon Musk themed NFT from DARPA Labs. And when he went back to his digital wallet to view the art, he received a 404 error. Now, this story came down to two issues: a violation of service on OpenSea, which resulted in the image being suppressed, and an unreadable ERC token. So, Ben, I know you've dug into this story a little bit. You have a story today coming out about NFT scams. What did you take away from this?
I mean, we can talk about that story a little bit later in the segment, but to me, the top line takeaway here was just sort of this weird sort of labyrinth of NFTs that are being developed out there with different marketplaces using different standards and people having various understandings about, kind of where their NFTs live and what makes an NFT unique. Is it the image? Is it the hash? Like, what are all these other things? But, last week we talked about sort of this idea of token standards and things like that, which kind of creates issues with cross-compatibility between different wallets in the case of Zengo and Coinbase. But this was another interesting aspect of this, where the marketplace that this NFT was in was using a different token standard than another marketplace, and more or less this resulted in it not showing up on Etherscam to be trackable. So that was something that was interesting to me. The continued kind of standards debate is going to be ongoing, but this just shows how like a lack of coordination amongst some of these standards, and particularly if you're not just using like the lowest common denomination standard, it can create some real issues for users that might not be kind of power users in this situation.
Now, along with coordination, I think there's still a lot of education to be done in the NFT space. This article talks about actually understanding what you're owning when you purchase a non-fungible token. And that's actually not the artwork. It's the metadata. It's a string of code that points you towards the artwork. Naomi, what's your take on this? What do we need to do to educate people on what they're actually owning in the NFT space?
Oh gosh, I don't even think the people who understand NFTs really understand what they're actually owning.
So true.
This is a super complex area of crypto, and crypto itself is complex enough. Like, I think that it goes down to, first of all, in this case, just making sure that different protocols are compatible with each other, or different standards are compatible. But in terms of like average users getting involved with this, they have to be careful. Like, I mean, it's going to get easier. People are more native to the internet if they've grown up with it. So obviously people are getting older and older who lived at a time where the internet did not exist. And so when you are native to these technologies, you understand them more intuitively. So we are going to get a generation of people who get crypto. They've had it their whole life. They get NFTs and all this. We're not there yet. And a lot of people jumping on the hype are people who probably just really don't understand what any of this is. So I think we have a long way to go with education for sure. But Zack, what are your thoughts on all this, and what do we need to do?
I mean, we've been writing this story. Everybody's been writing this story. This story is out there. The people can educate themselves. I think it's incumbent upon the standards to be established across the industry right now. This idea of NFT permanence, which, Brady Dale explored about a month ago at this point. These things aren't fully, these things, there's no consensus around what's the best way to store the digital media files that these hashes point to. Talking about different and competing token standards for how to best send NFT tokens across the internet. So like these things are sort of, this is the process of like building the plane while in flight. And I think the more standards work can be established, across these marketplaces in a way that lends certainty and comfort from the user side to the industry, I think the better. But it's still a work in progress. Naomi, you.
Yeah, we're in early days of crypto. We're in very early days of NFT. If you look at the internet in the early days, like it took a long time for like TCP/IP, like the internet protocol, to come out and say these are ways that we can all use this same system and these different things can talk to each other. We're not there yet in crypto, and I think it's taking a long time to figure that out. And you've got so many people working on it and so many people competing with their own standards. So it is going to take a while to get that ironed out, but we will get there. I have no doubt that it's going to get easier, and we'll have these seamless processes, just like you open up your Brave browser and everything seems to work and the page populates and you don't really have to understand how any of that works. We will get to that stage in crypto. We're just not there yet.
Yeah, and I think like this points too, like to how quickly some of these things are getting spun up right now, because everybody's trying to capitalize on the NFT kind of gold rush that's seemingly happening. And so, look, we get these pitches all the time about, hey, this new NFT product marketplace is popping up in relation with this partnership and this other one. And so, if you do this as quickly as you do, there's not going to be a whole lot of coordination. You're going to have a really scattershot sort of approach to some of these things.
For sure. I'm going to change track here and take us to Europe now and talk about setting standards and everything. So the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, the president, said that her institution could potentially launch a digital currency around the middle of the decade. And, quote, she says, the whole process, let's be realistic about it, will, in my view, take another 4 years, maybe a little more. I read this and I just think how quickly the crypto space moves. And the central bank is like, well, we're considering a study that will study the study that we've been considering for several years now. And they just keep going. And so it
Shout out to the stock image there.
It made me giggle.
Perfect photo.
Made me giggle to read this because bureaucracy moves so slowly. But I think there is a darker issue here as well. So Lagarde actually said, we need to make sure that we do this right. We owe it to the Europeans. And that made me do a double take because there's so much that the ECB is doing right now that they shouldn't be, and they owe it to Europeans to not be doing this stuff. So I'm going to throw it to the group here. And your thoughts on this. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the ECB and their role with stable coins. They've made it very clear that they want to keep control with the central bank. They don't want competing stable coins. Like, they've made that very, very clear. They don't like that competition. So what exactly are they doing with this thing if they're talking about owing things to the Europeans? I don't know, Will, I saw you nodding your head there.
Should go work for the Ethereum Foundation with these dates she's actually given. It's more No, I think it's it is frightening. And I think if you look at Europe itself, which is a history of always being at war with itself, the common mandate of the EU and any sort of currency that they have is try to bring that continent together. And there's if you've been to one part of Europe and you've been to another, they're so different. And I just don't see how using this common standard across all these different countries would even work, especially once they start rolling in these weird anti-privacy features, who's going to be collecting this information? How do the states decide which information is necessary for their citizens to look at and not have? I did some reporting on the Netherlands when they were rolling out some cryptocurrency law with their national bank. And there was so much conflict between the EU and the Netherlands on some very fine details on the privacy features of crypto. And this wasn't even for them issuing their own token. This was just for them allowing Bitcoin in the country. And there's going to be a lot of fireworks, I think, over the next few years. And I think it's the place to watch. The EU and then, of course, US regulations are its own disaster. But it's frightening to me, but interesting to see where this goes from a reporting standard.
Yeah, for sure. I will add that. So go ahead, Ben.
No, take it away, Naomi.
I was going to say, you have major players who called on the European Commission to draw up really strict regulations around stablecoins. Basically, they said that stablecoins should preserve the bloc's monetary sovereignty and address risks to monetary policy. So really what they want is a system that allows them to keep doing infinite money printing, doing big bailouts. I mean, Bitcoin started in the Genesis blog. It says, Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. So, crypto's came about as a reaction to all of this stuff that, for example, the European Central Bank is doing. And now the European Central Bank is saying, well, we're going to get into cryptocurrency, but we're going to do it in a way that strengthens our position and stronghold on the monetary system. So I'm really not a fan of what they're doing there, but at least they're moving real slowly. So we may not get it for a while. Zack?
I mean, I'm a fan of Lagarde. I think Lagarde's really cool. I do think, she's sort of speaking to her constituency, right? These are her people. She's like, hey, we gotta stack up for these guys. So, I don't fault her for doing that. I think the interesting thing around, CBDCs versus private stablecoins, certainly in the UK, just, UK finance minister, I think yesterday made some comments at a conference, saying that they have concerns about private stablecoins introducing sort of anti-competitive factors into the marketplace. So clearly they're going to study this thing. Clearly they want to have all the levers to tweak the economy to their liking. So the fact that this may take multiple years, I think, is to be expected as they iron out these things. I mean, in the meantime, Bitcoin and other public cryptocurrencies are going to continue apace, but on the CBDC and stablecoin end, I think that's where a lot of the regulatory, at least based on statements recently from the UK and others, I think that's where a lot of the regulatory focus is going to land.
Maybe on the flip side of this too, we just talked about some of the standards issues with like NFTs and the rapid spin-offs of all these. So you don't want to see like any sort of central bank digital currency running into those sorts of issues. And that's probably something they're trying to avoid, is they're just trying to, dot all their I's and cross all their T's.
I wonder if like the ECB is going to create their own like crypto tribes, and they'll have like, I like my chain and I like your chain, and that just moves into the government sphere. That'd be kind of interesting. But what
geopolitical tribes.
Yeah, we're talking about burritos.
We got lunch next.
Yes, I love burritos.
It is lunchtime.
Chipotle. Okay, quiet down. We got Chipotle in the menu. Let's talk about it. So 10,000 fans will each get one free burrito, which is pretty cool, but that's not what we're here to talk about. 50 fans will get $500 in Bitcoin, and 3 fans will win up to $25,000 in Bitcoin, which is a lot of Bitcoin. It's not a whole Bitcoin. Crazy to think a year ago, $25,000 in Bitcoin would have given you like 6 or 7 Bitcoin. But now that's not even a whole Bitcoin. It's half of a Bitcoin. So that's interesting. But it's cool to see some of these bigger brands move in and kind of catch them in the hype. I think it's very similar to the NFT thing. The brand needs to keep doing its thing and keep getting people's eyes on itself. And Bitcoin doesn't really go away. It might not be as sexy or interesting as some of the other tech out there like NFTs, but people know it, and its name brand has some cachet.
Will, are you making the Taco Bell, Chipotle, like NFT Bitcoin, like Virgin Chat meme right now? Are you making that? Because I'm not making. That's all you. The time is right for that. I'm not going to be able to make that today, but I think that's pretty cool. It's cool that Chipotle is doing this around Bitcoin and not around NFTs. You could have seen a future in which that would have been the case. I went and saw this yesterday and went running my mouth on Twitter and saying that this has got to be an April Fool's joke. But if you actually look in the terms and conditions, like they're actually very detailed and like very thought out, and like accounting for hard forks of the Bitcoin blockchain, and whether or not that will entitle winners to the hard fork currency as well as the Bitcoin currency. So like the fact that they're thinking about this is a credit to their team over there. So anyway, burritos rule. That's all I got. I love burritos.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe an interesting like opportunity for sort of, as educational as interactive games can be, maybe this is it. This is coming in partnership with Stephen Thomas, the founder and CEO of Coil. And the idea is to have users kind of take 10 guesses at a 6-digit code to access a hard drive, hypothetical hard drive that Thomas lost $387 million worth of Bitcoin on because he forgot said code. And so that sort of shows they say it's like an ode to him, and that just kind of sucks. Like, so I'm not quite sure how that works, but it shows kind of you can leave your assets completely stranded. And I think it is kind of funny that they've somehow managed to make light of what I would imagine was a pretty devastating situation.
Do we know how this is going to work? How do we make these guesses? Is it just like more details to come?
Yeah, I want to enter.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I just want to
read
the official rules.
Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I just want the free burrito. I didn't know. Wait, so Ben, for real, Stephen Thomas is involved in this? The former Ripple CTO and centerpiece of a Nathaniel Popper piece in the Times recently about getting totally wrecked by having lost access to a treasure trove of Bitcoin. That's pretty cool. Thank you for that detail.
Yeah. How can Chipotle's going to wreck you again, apparently. I'm going to make a game out of it.
Seriously,
so how it works.
I want to enter this. I'm on Bitcoin.
There are so many things we've committed to entering on this show that we never do. I'm going to make a list. I'll come back tomorrow with it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I enter every single one of them.
Do you? Okay, well, before we wrap it up, I will tell you how to do it really quickly. So I would first go on to Chipotle.com. I think it's or burritosbitcoin.com. And then you have 10 guesses for a 6-digit code to win the burritos or the Bitcoin. So pretty simple. I think it's just burritos or bitcoin.com. I'm sure you can find it from Chipotle.com too, or Twitter.
Well, okay. What are your guesses? Because I'm gonna be looking at like Satoshi's birthday. I'm gonna be looking at the launch of the Genesis block. Like they've probably worked out a code, right? Like it means something.
You would think that, but I don't.
I think
just
you just
a little Nas X and go like 42666. Like, let's go.
All right. Well, we better get to work on that, guys. What are like carnitas, like in numbers, like but with 6 of them? I think that's my top guess. This has been the Hash for Wednesday, March 31st. Thanks for sticking with us and chatting about crypto news and culture and all that good stuff. I'm Zach. We got Naomi. We got Ben. We got Jen. We got Will. The band is here, and we are happy to talk to you guys tomorrow. Same time, same channel, The Hash. See ya.
See you later.
Bye.